Hello and welcome to Real People Big Astronomy, an event from the Big Astronomy program in which we talk to STEM professionals about the types of jobs that they do and learn a little bit about their jobs and their lives. My name is Renee Kerrigan. I'm a member of the Big Astronomy leadership team, and I'm very excited to have with us here Dr. Sian Proctor, who will be speaking to us about her career. Sian has made history by being the first female African-American pilot to fly in space with the Inspiration 4 mission. She is a geoscientist, explorer, space astronaut, space artist, and astronaut, and she was the mission pilot for the Inspiration 4 all-civilian orbital mission to space. So we are excited to talk to Sian today, and I'll be asking her some questions. We'll also be taking questions from all of you who are joining us. But before we get started with that, I'm just going to quickly mention what the Big Astronomy Project is. So Big Astronomy is a National Science Foundation funded project that created a planetarium show about these amazing observatories that are built in Chile. Sian and I first met because of a different program that we'll mention in a little bit that's related to these observatories in Chile. But the planetarium show was created in both English and Spanish, and it's available for free or at very low cost and at planetariums around the United States and world. So look and find out if it's showing in a planetarium near you, and if it's not, see if you can get it in that dome. You can find out information about that at bigastronomy.org. It also includes this ongoing live event series. It includes a whole toolkit of activities from Astronomical Society of the Pacific and educational research that's being done on the effectiveness of these programs. So there's a lot of great stuff with Big Astronomy. And again, you can follow us on social media or find out more at our web portal, bigastronomy.org. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and get started chatting with Dr. Proctor. So Sian, thank you so much for being here today. It's really lovely to have you on our Real People Big Astronomy program.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here tonight.
So as I said in the introduction, you have done so many different things in your career, which is, I think, what is one of the things I was most excited to talk to you about. Perhaps the biggest, or at least the most newsworthy thing you've done has been recent with going to space with this Inspiration 4 mission. But I did wonder if you could just describe to our viewers what you would consider your job is now. So a little bit about, what is your job and what do you do in your STEM career?
Well, by training, I'm a geoscientist. I've been a community college professor for over 20 years now, and I'm at the Maricopa Community College District in Phoenix, Arizona. And my main campus is South Mountain Community College, but the last couple of years I've been assigned to the district. And Maricopa Community College District is one of the largest in the United States. And so I've been the open educational resource coordinator with them before I went to space. And then when I came back, they were gracious enough to make me basically the astronaut in residence while I was training for SpaceX. And now this semester that I'm back at the district, I am the director of basically a Global Futures Institute, which is all about the future of education and kind of like a think tank. And I'm also doing outreach as an astronaut, trying to inspire kids to think about careers in STEM and how the arts can play a role also in their science careers. So I'm doing a lot of things, and so it's been really great.
I can certainly tell that you are not ever not busy. You're a busy person in your career. So I know that one of the ways you also have described yourself has been an analog astronaut. Can you describe what that means a little bit?
Yeah, so an analog astronaut is somebody who engages in the advancement of human spaceflight, but they're not associated with a spaceflight training agency like NASA or JAXA or ESA. Instead, we're independent people who typically live in Moon and Mars simulations and do kind of like independent research and things like that. And when you live in these Moon and Mars simulations, you're the human subject in them. And so I was really lucky that in 2013, I lived in the high seas habitat on the Big Island of Hawaii for 4 months, investigating food strategies for long duration spaceflight for NASA. And I've lived in many other simulations since then. And that picture in the lower right, if me in the spacesuit, is from the Big Island of Hawaii during my high seas mission.
I think it's so cool to hear about how you've done a lot of different things in your career, a lot of outreach and being an analog astronaut, but we know that it was a lifelong dream of yours to go to space. And you made history by being on the Inspiration 4 pilot, Inspiration 4 mission as a pilot. So I just wondered if you could share with us some of what that experience was like for you. Like, what were some of the highlights of that whole experience of training for and then actually going to space for 4 days on Inspiration 4?
It was definitely, I've been chasing space my entire life. I was born on Guam because my dad was working at the NASA tracking station during the Apollo missions. He stopped working in that area as soon after I was born, but I grew up with all of this NASA memorabilia on his office wall and Neil Armstrong's autograph to him. And I just, as a kid, I wanted to be a fighter pilot and an astronaut because that just seemed like an amazing thing to do with my life. And then things kind of changed, but I always had hope that I would one day make it to space. And so when Inspiration 4 came along and, I could basically win the opportunity to go, I decided to go for it. And I was so fortunate to be selected for the prosperity seat. And I trained for almost 6 months as the mission pilot. And you can imagine my excitement when not only did I win the seat to go to space, but then when Jared, my commander, said, "And we want to make you the mission pilot," and I was like, "What?" So a lot of learning and dedication and to become the SpaceX Dragon capsule pilot. I lots of hours and books because it's really, you're becoming a systems engineer. And so I loved it. It was such a challenge and so rewarding because my crew was so much fun. And so you spend 5.5 basically months working, training, getting yourself prepared for that day. And then on September 15th, we launched and we spent 3 days on orbit, and the view from the cupola of our planet was transformative. And so I took the time to shoot this video, and this is in real time. I'm got the camera so you don't see me, but the music that I selected to play with it was specifically playing in real time. So this is not post editing. I don't know if you can hear, I don't think the music's playing, but what's cool about it is as you see it coming in, you'll notice that Haley there has a job to do, and so she's getting ready to do that. But you can see that our capsule begins to get flooded with what I call Earth light, and this moment was by far the best moment I feel of the entire space flight. And look at her face where she looks up and she sees, our beautiful planet for the first time from that vantage point. And just so bright, and the clouds. So because the music's not playing, I'm actually playing 2001: A Space Odyssey at this moment, and the timing of the music and just us looking up through the cupola for the first time and getting bathed in Earthlight. It was transformative experience for sure.
it gives me chills just imagining being able to like see that brilliant view for the first time, and then that feeling of being bathed in the Earth's light. It's it looks. I just imagine that was. Well, I can't really imagine, but I love the idea of it, and I think probably a lot of people who are space enthusiasts can sympathize with how amazing that must have felt. I'm curious, could you see the Earth before that moment? Or was that really okay, you could see it out the smaller windows. But
yeah, these are the dragon eye windows. And so, yeah, we could see it out of there. But what we didn't realize, like once we opened up the cupola, this big domed window, and we slid up in it, you could see the entire sphere of the Earth because we're so high up. And that was kind of transformative, where you can't get that view from the dragon eye. You just get the slice of our planet. But up in the cupola, you got to see the whole thing. And you know, when I talk about Earth light, why it's so why I think astronauts have the overview effect is because you can feel the energy just kind of radiating on you. You think of when you go out on a full moon, you know, you go outside, it's a full moon, and you're getting bathed in moonlight. And think about all of the poems and the myths and the songs and stories that have been written about the moon, particularly a full moon, and how it captivates us. And part of that is because of that moonlight that's kind of reflecting on us, and that feeling it gives you. Well, the Earth is like 1,000 times brighter. And I, you know, as a geoscientist, I knew that the Earth had a high reflectivity, but to get up there and then have that Earth light just come upon you and see all of the colors swirling, blues and whites, and just magnificent.
Well, that you've helped me imagine it even better, and that's really beautiful. So I'm gonna play this next video, which is from the Dragon Eye video windows, I think, or that you also have on your YouTube channel. And folks who are tuning in, if you would like to learn more or see more content, Dr. Proctor has so many great videos on her YouTube channel. So just look at Sian Proctor on YouTube, and you can see a lot of great content there as well.
Yeah, this was a time lapse that I shot, and you can see right at the end there, that we were going into night. So we orbited the Earth every 90 minutes. That meant we had a sunrise or a sunset every 45 minutes. So as you watch this video, you can see the edge of darkness creeping in along as we go into the dark side of the Earth. And so this was a time lapse that I sped up, looking out the window.
So beautiful. So we've alluded to like so many different things you've been able to do in your life, in this most recent mission, culminating in being the first African-American female pilot on the Inspiration 4 mission. How would you, if you had to encapsulate how your path to getting there, what was the journey that you took to get to this this career that you have now?
You know, it's been a long journey of just, you know, a lot of it's discovery and being an explorer. I remember as an early age just wanting to go out and explore our world. And, you know, I was always kind of like in the woods, growing up in New Hampshire and New Jersey and New York and Minnesota, and just loving to be outside. And my dad always thought, you know, neither of my parents had college degrees, so he was very adamant about how education leads to opportunity. And it was funny because, you know, I just was always curious and running around and always interested in all kinds of things. And my dad would always say, I think he was a little worried about me. He'd call me a jack of all trades, master of nothing. And, you know, he's like, you got to settle down. You need to pick something that you really love. And I eventually went off to get my degree, my undergrad in environmental science. And one of the reasons why I picked that was because I got to take a lot of different classes in different areas. I got to take, geology, well, hardly any geology, actually, surprisingly, but I had my environmental science classes, I had my chemistry, I had my biology, I had my physics, my math, just a real rounded science classes. And then I went off and got my master's in geology at Arizona State University. And that's when I fell in love with teaching, because they made me a teaching assistant. And I thought, wow, I can do this. I really love being in the classroom and inspiring people to learn more about our Earth. And so once I got my master's, I started working full time at the community college, teaching geology classes, geoscience classes. And I decided that I'd get my PhD in science education so that, to become as one of the best teachers I could become, right? Through learning how to share information, create curriculum, and all of those kinds of things, using technology to teach with. And at the same time, taking advantage of opportunities, being able to teach around the world and travel around the world through the Maricopa Community Colleges. I did faculty exchanges to China and Australia and the Netherlands and, South America, and feel really fortunate that I've had opportunities to go and do some of these things, and explore our planet, and then bring that back to the classroom. And create curriculum. And again, it goes to inspiring the next generation to be able to think about going out there and doing these things. But all during that, you have your professional development, but you also have your personal development. And part of that was I wanted to get scuba certified. I'd always wanted to fly as a kid, so I got my pilot's license. And lo and behold, by everything that I was doing as a college professor, both professionally, but also then my personal endeavors, made me qualified to try out to become a NASA astronaut. So in 2009, I applied to become a NASA astronaut, and I got down to the yes/no phone call. And then when I got the no, I was able to think, well, it was a no, but I could still contribute to the advancement of human spaceflight by becoming an analog astronaut. And so, and I kept telling myself, well, maybe, NASA may not have accepted me. I will still contribute. And then one day, maybe commercial spaceflight will give me the opportunity to go to space. So I never gave up hope. And then, lo and behold, last year, I would have never guessed that would have happened, but it did. And I feel so grateful and fortunate. But I think, when I look back at my career, a lot of it was taking advantage of opportunities and not saying no. And so when I think of that, my dad calling me a jack of all trades, master of nothing, now I call myself a jack of all opportunities, master of life experiences, thinking that the opportunities lead to new adventures, growth, experiences, and those all spin off with even more opportunities and experiences and growth.
And say yes to opportunities is the lesson I'm going to take away from that. That's really wonderful. So I alluded to this earlier, but I met you, Sian, because we are both ASSA ambassadors. So the ASSA program is the Astronomy in Chile Educator Ambassador Program. And it is also a National Science Foundation funded program that sends astronomy educators to the National Science Foundation funded telescopes in Chile. And I was lucky enough to be selected for that in 2015. And you went in 2016. And it was because of those experiences that the Big Astronomy program got started. It was a direct result of the ASSA that we created this Big Astronomy program. And so I was curious if you could speak to your experience at with ASAP and how that may have contributed to your career and journey.
Yes, absolutely. I feel so fortunate to, again, get these opportunities that, really transform you. And so I remember when the ASSA program, I learned about it, and, I thought to myself, well, I'm not an astronomer, but I've always loved astronomy. I've taken astronomy, and I teach planetary geology is one of the classes I taught at the community college. But it was one of the things where, I'd been living in these Moon and Mars simulations and helping to advance human spaceflight. And again, this is one of those things where you can easily talk yourself out of opportunity versus thinking of ways to talk yourself into opportunity. And so I thought, well, I'm going to apply, and I'm going to tell them why they should take me as, a kind of astronomy slash advancement of human spaceflight kind of person. And I was so fortunate that I got selected and was able to go down to Chile to these amazing observatories and meet amazing astronomers. And it's funny because the experience of going down there transforms you, like I said, because you get to see these big installations and how they work and the science that's happening there. But really, it's about the people you get to go with and connect with, and how that leads to even more opportunities. And the group that I went with, I mean, we're all still friends. We get together and support each other. And what's interesting now that I've gone to space, because I've always loved astronomy, coming back and looking at ways where I can continue to be an ambassador, and really getting back into looking at the night sky and talking about my experience of being an astronaut, looking back at the Earth as a geoscientist and an artist and a poet, but also looking out into the stars and where we're going, for humanity. And I think that that's part of the art side of me. When I think about me as an artist and an Afrofuturist artist, and where I see humanity going, and the role that I can play with my art and my poetry. And this was definitely a transition for me to, I think, get to this point, was being a part of this program. And so for those of you that are listening, again, when you're thinking about opportunities and you think of, again, a lot of times our mind will tell us, oh, I'm not qualified, or they'll never select me. But you definitely can't get selected if you don't apply. And so I think the big thing is put yourself out there, apply, think of what unique things you bring to the table, and tweak it so that you have that new perspective and give them a reason why they should take you, instead of talking yourself out of applying.
I really love that you shared that you had a feeling of like maybe you weren't right for that program, and yet you implied anyhow. And we're a wonderful ambassador to the program, because Sian, when I first learned of the program, I was even newer in my career at the time, and I was like, oh, there's no way they only take like 9 people. I'll never get in. And it's been we put the link in the Zoom chat, and I'll pop it up on the Facebook. It's on the Facebook page as well now, but it has been truly transformative for me as well. So if you are an astronomy educator, I do recommend looking into the Astronomy in Chile Educator Ambassador Program.
I totally agree.
So we've already alluded to your time as an analog astronaut, and I really enjoy learning that you took what could have been a setback, perhaps viewed as a setback, as not getting that no call from NASA, and turning it into, well, I'm still going to contribute by being an analog astronaut. Um, I was just curious if you could speak a little bit about those experiences. And I also know that you have done outreach and education on the ocean, on ocean ships. So I would enjoy hearing a little bit about those experiences.
Yeah, I feel really lucky that, again, the no phone call from NASA was devastating at first, and I thought to myself immediately, my first reaction was, oh, I've always had this thing about suffering a little bit from imposter syndrome, and I have a TEDx talk on imposter syndrome on my YouTube channel, and feeling like, maybe I'm not good enough. Even though you're qualified and stuff, you just have that voice inside your head that fuels you with doubt. And so when I got the no from NASA, the first thing that I did was I started thinking, wow, I got to make myself better. And I applied into like a space studies program, because even though I had my PhD, I was going to go and get my master's in space studies. I was going to get my advanced scuba. I was going to get, all of these things to make myself better. So the next time around, NASA would take me. But then I stopped because I was really kind of burning myself out and driving myself crazy. And I said, look, instead of like thinking about all the things that of reasons why NASA didn't select me, instead I should celebrate the fact that I was a finalist for the NASA Astronaut Program out of thousands of candidates, when I never would have even imagined that. And when I reframed that and started thinking and celebrating that year of trying to become an astronaut, it enabled me to open up to new possibilities. And that's when I found the analog astronaut community and the high seas habitat. And this picture was actually taken in 2020 when I went back to the high seas habitat right before we went into COVID lockdown. And I was part of the first all civilian crew, first all female crew to live in the high seas habitat. And that was an amazing experience. But then I've also done ocean research, like you were saying, and I've been fortunate to be able to be a NOAA teacher at sea and also on the JOIDES resolution. And so this is a picture of me spending 2 months on the JOIDES resolution in the Antarctic circumpolar current. And I live in Phoenix, Arizona. So both of my times that I've gone to sea have been like in really cool extreme locations. For the NOAA teacher at sea, I actually went to Kodiak, Alaska. And then for the JOIDES resolution, I went to, again, the Antarctic circumpolar current, not down to Antarctica, but the current that goes around Antarctica. So this is down in the deep South Pacific, where the water is that dark, dark blue and deadly cold. And if you fall overboard, wouldn't be good. and I spent 2 months on the JOIDES, and it's a drilling ship that goes all around the world. It's NSF funded, and it does climate science research, ocean science research, but it brings up these core samples from the bottom of the ocean, where it's a geologic record of not only the life that lives in the ocean, but also the changes that have been happening for climate science. And so I was the science education outreach officer for that 2-month expedition. And I loved it so much that I'm actually right now at an oceans conference with amazing people who are trying to do things to save our oceans, basically, from things like plastic and coral reefs and just all kinds of things that are happening right now as the climate is changing.
Yeah, it's obviously very important work, and it's so great to hear about the different areas of science that you've done outreach in and helped and learned about yourself, and then helped other people learn. And there's a couple comments here in the chat about just how great a lesson it is to keep on finding those opportunities, right? So there's always some sort of opportunity out there for you if you reframe your expectations. I appreciated hearing about that.
And
Um,
I think that that's one of the things, being a geoscientist, which means, earth scientist. One of the reasons why I love it so much is that it's such diversity in the field. I talk to people about being a geoscientist, my specialty is actually the science of disasters. I did my sabbatical back a little while ago, but at FEMA's emergency management, working on the science of disasters curriculum. So volcanoes, earthquakes, deadly weathers, and stuff like that. But because, the geoscience in its nature covers so many things like our oceans and land processes, disasters, the history of the earth. It just has enabled me to go out and find these really cool opportunities because the classes that I teach are so diverse, everything from physical geology and historical geology out to planetary science and life in the universe, but also sustainable cities and sustainable world.
So Sian, one of the goals of the Big Astronomy project, whenever we chat with STEM professionals such as yourself, is to help our viewers understand that the people who work in science and technology fields are whole people who have different jobs, different skill sets, and also have varied interests. So we always like to ask a little bit about what people like to do for fun. So outside of your work, what do you enjoy doing for fun? What is part of what makes you, a whole person?
Well, definitely travel. I've traveled, travel has always been my top hobby. And it was really hard when we went into COVID because, travel wasn't available anymore. And as a result, I ended up becoming a space artist, and a poet. And so 2020 was transformative in that sense that I kind of developed my authentic voice through art and poetry, something that was definitely lacking. And I have such an appreciation for the humanities and how art and science can come together, because in science and technology, engineering, math, there's art in all of that. But then in art, there's a lot of science, technology, and engineering, and even math. And so when we start, we separated those two things out, but really they're intertwined and shouldn't be separated out. And one of the things that is cool is that when I applied for the Inspiration 4 seat, the prosperity seat, it was a contest on Twitter where you had to show your entrepreneurial spirit by opening up a shop, a Shift 4 shop, and sell something. You had to provide a service. And then you had to create a 2-minute and 20-second video expressing why they should send you to space. And so I could have done that as a geoscientist, as an analog astronaut, all of those things. But instead, I applied to go to space as an artist and a poet, because I felt like that was my way, because I had found my authentic voice through art and poetry. And as a result, my crewmates during training, when we did jet flying training, fighter jet flying training, you get your call sign. And so my call sign is Leo. And a lot of people are like, Leo, like as in, is that your sign? And I'm like, no, I'm an Aries, actually, which is funny. And it's because of Leonardo da Vinci. My crewmates consider me a modern day Renaissance woman because I combine science, STEM into STEAM. And really bringing that art back into the conversation. And I just love that.
I love hearing that too, because I wondered where Leo came from. And I was also going to ask you specifically about your art. I wondered how it contributed to your STEM sort of path. And so it was the lockdown that sparked that, you like drawing that back out. Had you been an artist before, but maybe not focused on it, or was it really new to you in starting in the pandemic?
I was the kid who always loved art stores, paper, textiles, and stuff like that. But I was the kid that would walk up to the art store and look in and be like, oh, look at all that cool stuff in there, but a little timid, because I'm like, that was just like a whole nother world. And in school, they really kind of like especially in my day, they really tracked you. You were either in the sciences or you were in the arts. And so, I didn't take any art classes during, high school and even really in college because I was busy taking all of my science classes and my math classes and all of that. And that really filled up your schedule. And so, but I'd always had this kind of like, what kind of like inquisitiveness to art and wanting to know more. And I kept telling myself, well, maybe one day I'll be able to dabble in that. And as a kid, I used to draw things like dragons and stuff like that. But not really good, not good enough for anybody to take notice. And so during COVID, it was pretty funny because I was giving out postcards on social media just as cheer people up, science postcards. And somebody said, well, where's your postcard? How about, where's your art? And I'm like, I'm not an artist. And I thought, or am I? And so I started with collage art because I figured I can't draw or paint, but I can cut things out and paste it together and make something interesting. So I started as a collage artist and people were like, wow, this is really good. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe I can draw and paint. And so I bought paints and I started doing that and people liked it. And then next thing I know, I'm going to space as an artist and a poet.
And you did that, after you had already done so many different things as you're in your career. So it's sort of what a fantastic reminder that you are never too late, or it's never beyond when you can become something new, that none of us are just one thing, right? We can be all sorts of things in our lives.
Absolutely. And I think that that's the thing, is unleashing your creativity. My motto, even before I became a space artist and stuff, has been space to inspire. And it's all about how you use your space. Because people, when I say space to inspire, people think I'm talking about outer space. But what I'm talking about is this space, the space you inhabit. It's unique. It's one of a kind. And you take it everywhere you go. It's with you. It's everything you do. And so how do you use your unique space to inspire those within your reach and beyond? And what I learned through, looking back at my career, and particularly the last couple of years, is creativity. How to unleash your unique creativity in whatever form that might be, and being able to share that with people, and not only inspire yourself, but inspire those around you.
Sian, it's been really fun to talk with you tonight, and just sort of keeping us on track here. I have one more question, and then we're going to take questions from our audiences who are watching. We have some people watching this virtual event in person, so we're going to take some questions from those folks, and we're also going to take some questions from our guests who are watching on Facebook and here on Zoom. But my last question I have for you is just, I personally, and I know a lot of our viewers, I really loved watching your time in space on the Inspiration4 mission, because I knew that it had been a lifelong dream for you. So there was that moment of just watching someone achieve their dream. It was beautiful, just really, really beautiful. But also, it was lovely to see that the mission raised so much money for St. Jude. So I was just curious, what do you hope that the people who watched that journey of the whole crew going to space, like, what do you hope people take away? Like, what's the message you would want to share with that experience?
Oh, wow. There's a couple of things. One, inspire people to dream big. I think that that's always the core of the message, that you got to push yourself and think about and create community to help you. You don't have to do it alone. I think that that's an important part of the message. Also, when I think about me as, an older, seasoned individual, that you don't give up on your dreams, especially for women. A lot of times we think that, the best part of us, we're in our 20s, or, now you might be raising kids, and the dreams you had as a kid, you've put them aside because you've got other dreams, or you're investing in, raising good humans. but it's never too late to give up on those dreams, because yeah, you know, you can have your fabulous 50s, your stellar 60s, sensational 70s, you know, 80s, 90s, all the way, it's all the way to the grave that you kind of try to strive to be creative and to be connected. And then when I think about the advancement of human spaceflight and what we're doing, you know, as we go to the moon, Mars, and beyond, you know, it's not about abandoning Earth. You know, solving for space solves for Earth. And, you know, when you look at the Inspiration 4 mission and the fact that we raised so much money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and the reason why is because, you know, my commander, Jared Eisenman, he was very thoughtful in how he was going to take people to space, being able to take 3 people he didn't know, because he knew that this was going to be the first mission of its kind, and that he wanted to not only inspire people, but also make a statement that as we go out among the stars, that, you know, we want to do good here on Earth. And I think that that's often missed, that, you know, when we are trying to explore and push the boundaries of human, you know, human exploration, that we're also developing new technologies and new systems and new ways of thinking. And that's all happening here on Earth. And it's and all that stuff that we're testing out there in, you know, on the moon and Mars and in lower Earth orbit. Well, all of that comes back to help us here become more efficient and hopefully more sustainable, and thinking about how we can make Earth, the best place in our solar system, even better. And then the last thing that I think would be that idea of a Jedi space, a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space, as we write the narrative of human space flight. How do we take everybody along? How do we open up access? How do we include people? And I think that that's something that needs to be part of the conversation, and it needs to be happening now. And being the first Black female pilot of the spacecraft, I have a responsibility to be able to come and share that message, all of these messages.
Thank you, Sian. We've had a lot of really great comments. People have really enjoyed your sharing with us tonight. So for those who have live audiences watching this in your dome, this would be a great question to start gathering a question from your audience. So if there's anybody watching this who has a question that would like to share, you are welcome to turn your video on and or put a message in the Zoom chat that you have a question in your audience. And I will mention that there is, while we're getting those questions, I'm going to mention that this project, Big Astronomy, has educational research that's being done for it by Michigan State University. Dr. Shannon Schmoll is here watching tonight and is the leader on the educational research that's being done on this project. So if you'd like to contribute to that, she's giving me a thumbs up. If you'd like to contribute to that, we will be sharing some links to survey that you can take to help us with the research, and we've just put it in the Zoom chat. It's on the Facebook page as well. And it looks like there is a question for you at the Abrams Planetarium. Is that right, Dr. Schmoll? Looks like there may be one in the Peoria Riverfront Museum. That's my museum. I'm in the office, and my coworkers in the planetarium dome.
Yes, we have a question. You ready for us?
Yes, we're ready.
You want to come up and ask your question?
What is the time like in space?
Did you say time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question, because time becomes a kind of freaky a little bit, because you're orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes. So you have that sunrise and sunset every 45 minutes. So that idea of a day disappears. So your day, we had a clock, and it was set to Florida time, Kennedy Space Center, where we launched from. And so that, and then based on the time that we launched, we set our day. And so we had a night launch. And so that meant by the time we got on orbit and, you know, we got out of our spacesuits and we ate dinner and stuff, it was well into the night. So our time, how we were doing our day and night was completely different than everybody else in Florida. And so, but it didn't matter because there was no real sense of a normal day and night because of, you know, that based on light. So we were going based off a clock and a schedule, and you would go up into the cupola and you'd be like, okay, it's going into darkness now, but you still had hours of stuff to do. So you just slept independent of that. And what was fun is when you went to sleep, you had to put in those dragon eyes. We had covers that went there, and then we closed the cupola, and then we turned all the lights off because, again, you're going through these cycles of light and darkness every 45 minutes. You had to just kind of like close all of that out so that you could sleep for 8 hours.
Thank you.
I think we have a question from one of our guests at the Abrams Planetarium.
Yes, hi. She's asked me that I ask it for her. So the question is, what was the worst thing or one of the worst things that happened up in space, and how did you deal with that? How did you overcome that up in space?
Well, you know, the best part is that we have really great training. We did have an alert go off, an alarm, and, you know, those are things that are always scary. The two things that are most scariest things that can happen in space is a fire and a depressurization of the capsule. And there are alarms that go off that signal that something's going wrong. And so we had a fire alert go off. We didn't actually have a fire, but one of the waste fans stopped working. And so we had to, you know, my job and my commander's job is to, when an alert goes off, is to go up to the monitors. And my job is to look at it from a systems engineering. And I pull up the systems page. And so when they say the pilot of a spacecraft, it's not, we don't have like, you know, yoke and rudder and stuff like you do in the old kind of flying. Instead, it's all computer screens. And really, as the pilot, I become a systems engineer. And so my job is to know all the systems and be able to pull them up on this touch screen and identify where, you know, an issue is, and then what we can or cannot do as a crew. And my commander there, he's ultimately responsible for the life and safety of the crew and the capsule. And so together, along with SpaceX, we figure out the best ways to move forward. And so we had to test, we have, you know, there's redundancies in the system. So we had to go through and we had to test the different waste fans and see what, and try to troubleshoot the problem. And in the end, we ended up having to close it both down because we couldn't get it to work properly. But luckily that didn't stop us from spending the full 3 days on orbit. Because sometimes if something goes wrong, you may have to deorbit early and come home. But in this case, we were able to work it out and be able to continue with the mission.
I think is there a question from the California Academy of Sciences audience? Okay, we're ready for you.
Indeed, there is. So as a geoscientist, what would you like to do if you had the opportunity to go back to space?
Oh, good question. I would go to the moon. You know, if I had my choice between going to the moon or Mars, I would choose the moon because I'm a moon celebration baby. You know, I was born 8.5 months after Neil Armstrong took those first few steps on the moon. So, but I would love to see Earth rise from the moon. And I have always loved it. I think going, and I wouldn't turn down Mars if someone said, hey, we want to send you to Mars. Okay, you know, because Mars would be pretty epic. But my entire life I've been dreaming of the moon.
I wouldn't turn down Mars either, Sian, but I think we should send you to either. I think you'd be a great candidate. We had a question from the guests at the Brazosport Planetarium, which is, what was your favorite meal to eat in space?
Good question, because I love eating food in space. You know, it was a lot like camping, because at first when we, you know, worked with SpaceX, they wanted to send us all this healthy food. And we're like, no, this is like a camping trip. We're only up there for 3 days. Give us food that, you know, we want to eat. And because food and mood are so closely connected, and having living in the high seas habitat doing that food study for NASA, I really got a sense of how connected food and mood are. And so in the end, they were able to create a little cooler for us, because we don't have a heating element or a cooling element on the Dragon capsule. They said, well, we can create a little cooler for you, and you can have fresh food for the first day and a half. And my favorite food is pizza. So I got to eat pizza, but funny enough, my favorite meal was this BLT. I don't know what SpaceX did, but this was the best BLT I've ever had. And so I just remember how good it was, but the pizza wasn't bad either. And so getting to eat those things along with M&Ms, and, you know, we had granola bars and just cheese and crackers and beef jerky, things like that, things that you would take camping.
That's fascinating. The fresh food for the first day and a half.
Yep, and because because 3 of my crew members were coffee drinkers and I drink tea. And you know, you don't want people grouchy for not having their coffee. So SpaceX took their coffee in these pouches and froze them. And then that acted as, you know, our ice packs. And as they thawed out, you know, the crew would drink them.
We had a couple questions for our virtual guests as well, from our guests here in Zoom and our guests on Facebook. And there's a lot of them, and I'm sorry, I don't know that we'll get to all of them, but one of them, which I thought you might enjoy answering, is which analog mission did you enjoy the most, and what did you learn from the experience?
Ooh, you know, nobody has ever asked me that. I spent 2 weeks at the Mars Desert Research Station, 4 months at High Seas, 2 weeks at Lunaris, which is in Pila, Poland, and then another 2 weeks at High Seas. So I've done 4 of them, and they were all kind of unique in their own way. But I'm gonna say that my favorite was hands down the very first one, where I lived for 4 months with my crewmates. There were 6 of us total, and I'm still good friends with them. And it was investigating food. We got to cook. I ran a Meals for Mars cooking show, which is on my YouTube channel. And so it's just food and space exploration and space suits, you know. So that was a lot of fun.
We have another question from one of our virtual attendees. And this person is curious, so how you described having your mind shift, where you stopped thinking about like what you had to do to get better, and then instead thought about like what you can offer and looking for different opportunities, and, you know, celebrating that you achieved so much rather than thinking about what you maybe had been told no about. And Jordan is curious, what, if you could describe like how you sort of experienced that mind shift, and what helped you frame it that way in your mind?
Well, I think there were a couple of things there. One is, you know, my family, my dad was always encouraging. He never told me I couldn't do anything. And then he was all about figuring out ways to do it. You know, oh, you like model airplanes? Well, and you think you want to go into the Air Force? Here's the Civil Air Patrol, you know, looking up solutions. And so when you get to a point where you're so disappointed that something didn't work out right the way you wanted to and stuff, you know, that hurts, and you gotta, and you know it because you can feel it. You can feel yourself being depressed by it and being kind of dragged down by it. And I'm luckily I'm normally just kind of a positive, optimistic person by nature, but I could feel after the no, just kind of like a little sad and depressed that I'd come that close to that childhood dream. And then, you know, and it was a no in the end. And then because I could feel that as I was thinking about like, well, how do I make myself better? How do I make myself better? I was getting into a kind of like a depression, and just feeling that positivity and that optimism that I normally have kind of slip away. And as I felt it slipping away, I realized that I was going down a path that I didn't want to go down, and that's when I stopped myself and I said, wait, whoa, this isn't a good direction for me. And that's when you mentally have to kind of take a moment and do some reflection and think about, okay, how am I talking to myself? What am I thinking here? How am I feeling? And do some of that internal work, and then say, okay, well, let's look at what I did and how do I reframe this? Because a lot of it is the conversations you have in your head about the disappointment. And a lot of times, why NASA didn't pick me, I'll never know why. But in the end, now it doesn't matter. I went to space. But again, that a lot of times we think the worst of ourselves when we get that no, when it could have had nothing to do with me. They could have been like, these 9 people have these things and I might have been 10th on the list, but these 9, independent of me. And so I think that that's the problem, is that a lot of times, we think it's all about us, and in reality, it could be about something else. And you just got to take a moment and say, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to move forward. And this is how I'm going to move forward. And it's going to be in a more positive way for me, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of those things.
That is, I think, such good advice. And I appreciate you sharing your experience. We have just 4 minutes left before we've officially reached our hour mark on this really wonderful program. And so I think we have one more question maybe from our guests here at the Peoria Riverfront Museum.
Yes, you want to ask your question?
What's the temperature in space?
Oh boy, that's a good question. It really varies depending on if you're within the direct sunlight or not. And now you got me thinking here, because it's a big shift. Number wise, I can't remember off the top of my head, but we didn't feel it because we were in the Dragon capsule, and so that is your own life support system, and so the temperature there is very regulated, so we could have it set at 80 degrees, 78, 76, depending on how we were feeling as a crew. But outside the Dragon capsule, you have to design it to be able to withstand these temperature extremes, because you're going into sunlight, direct sunlight, and then back onto the dark side. And so it's really kind of an engineering challenge to make satellites, to make capsules and stuff that can handle that extreme, temperature swing. And then when you think about astronauts that get the opportunity to go on spacewalks, and how their spacesuits have to also be able to handle that. Now, we couldn't go on any spacewalks for our mission because the Dragon capsule was all self-contained, and there was no real way, and it wasn't designed, our mission wasn't designed to be able to do that kind of capability. But I was worried that I was going to be cold in space. And, a lot of the astronauts who had flown before us, the NASA astronauts who had flown in the Dragon capsule, had said that they were cold. And so I made them pack extra sweatshirts and stuff for me. And if you see any of the videos, I have my little beanie hat on and stuff. And while Haley's like in a t-shirt and stuff, but, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, but I can tell you I was comfortable, and I was never really cold in space.
Well, thank you so much, Sian. Thank you, Dr. Proctor. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and we've had a ton of great comments here in the Zoom chat and also on our Facebook page. People have really said they've enjoyed the program, and wanted to say thank you for sharing your journey and your insights and your approach to life. So in closing, I just want to give one more call out that you can participate in the research. There's links in the Zoom window. There's also links on our Facebook page. that there is an HD flat screen version of Big Astronomy, this wonderful show about the people who work at the observatories. So it's not really about the observatories themselves, but all the wonderful jobs it takes to make these observatories happen, that Sian mentioned being our big takeaway from the ASSA program. You can find the licensing information for both the flat screen, which you can use in the classroom, or the planetarium version that you can show in a planetarium at bigastronomy.org. And there's a ton of content on our YouTube channel as well. So if you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Proctor and you'd like to see other conversations with other STEM professionals that work at these observatories, you can find that at Big Astronomy on YouTube. And with that, I'll say thank you so much. Let's give a big virtual round of applause for Dr. Sian Proctor. Everyone has really enjoyed this tonight, and we are grateful for having the chance to talk to you.
Thanks, and I hope everybody, you all go out there and use your space to inspire those within your reach and beyond.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sian.